thank you so much for agreeing to chat to us today.
That's right.
So, Mark, this film, we had the privilege of being able to watch it in a cinema on Monday night, and I think all of us that walked away really, really loved the film, so congratulations.
That's good to hear. Are you sure you're just not saying that because you're talking to the filmmaker?
No, definitely not. My review's already written, and said I loved it, so yeah.
Oh, great. No, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
So, Mark, tell us a little bit about this film. How did you first become involved with the film, and what were your thoughts when you first read the screenplay?
Look, the producer is a guy called Tony Ganane, and he and I had made a film a few years ago, which was a remake of an earlier film that he made in the 70s called Patrick. And after that, we worked developing a much larger follow-up, which was like a giant chase film through the desert. And we worked on that for years and years, and we just couldn't it got up 1 minute, fell apart the next. And I realised it had been so long since I'd been on a set. I just said to Tony, look, why don't you just figure out a budget that you can raise with the minimum of fuss. We're not in development hell for years, and let's just tailor a film to that. And he mentioned he had this script called Eyes at that point, written by a guy called Terence Hammond. And I read that and thought, well, this is great. We can sort of tailor this to, a sort of very tight and tough shoot. And we went away and did it.
I think that's one of the things that really struck me about this film, though. You talk about the low budget, but it doesn't look like a low budget film. It feels and looks like a Hollywood thriller when you're watching it.
Well, look, we had a decision to make, and that was, do we film the bigger script and have the film come out poorly, or do we sort of streamline everything and do something that we can achieve? And look, budgets don't mean anything to me. The schedule's a thing that means, everything to me. And we had 19 days ultimately to shoot this. So I did say to the cast, look, if we get this in the first take, I'm moving on. And not because, I'm just going to move on because everything's good, bad, or indifferent. If you can bring your A game, we get it in the first take, we'll move on because we'll get a lot more coverage. And so we were moving pretty quickly. And Gary, the DOP, and myself had pre-planned everything, so we knew what we needed to do. And it was fast and furious. And it was interesting. I did ADR, a couple of months after the shoot with one of the actors, and he said, "I actually don't remember the shoot. I thought it was actually a dream." And I guess that's in a way what it was like. It was like a fever dream shot during COVID, in a very tight and tough way.
Going back to my previous question, what was it about the screenplay that made you decide I want to make this film? Was there something there in the plot that just really attracted you to this film?
Oh, look, I've always loved, kind of Rear Window style movies, everything from Rear Window to Disturbia to Body Double. I've always loved kind of Nancy Drew style, Teens Who Cried Wolf films. So it was perfect in doing that. And I thought, I can do a sort of a throwback to the kinds of films that I really loved during the 80s. So, my pitch to Gary, the cinematographer, and also to Jamie, who was doing the music score, was, let's think that we're making a film for Steven Spielberg's Amblin Company in the 1980s, but directed by Tobe Hooper, who made the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And kind of that was the sensibility and the aesthetic we aimed for.
Was it difficult to get that right mix? Because it does have that 80s feel, but it also has that modern day cinema feel to it as well. Was it hard to get that mix?
I don't know if it's hard to get it. It's hard to know if it's going to work. And hopefully it does. I think that what's interesting about this film is that it is like, a very kind of bouncy teen movie, and then suddenly, oh, hang on, did I just see some nudity? Oh, did I just see some kind of some gore that I didn't expect to see in this kind of movie? So we did try to push some elements in there that would take, people by surprise.
Definitely, and I think that's exactly what happened in the screening that I was in as well. There was people in there that you could tell were generally shocked by some scenes, but thoroughly enjoyed the film at the same time.
Yeah, this is something I've said to everyone I've spoken to, basically. But I think the film's interesting in the fact that, to me these days, it seems like there's only two types of genre films made, and that's really, really extreme genre films or really, really arty, artistic genre films. And our film, we wanted to sit very much in the middle of that. And in a way, it's kind of like it's a thriller made by people who don't normally embrace horror films or thrillers. I think they can enjoy it and get sucked into the story and the characters and the mystery, and the horror and thriller elements, might not upset them too much.
Now, one of the things that there was a big debate about in the foyer after the screening the other night was where it was shot. Was it Ballarat or Bendigo? So could you tell us a little bit about that and why you decided to shoot where you shot?
Well, to tell you the truth, 99% of it was shot within 40 kilometres of Melbourne.
Yep.
So a lot of it was shot in Sunbury. A lot of it, sorry, not Sunbury. Sorry, where's the open air Zoom? The open air Zoom.
Oh, Werribee. Yep.
Werribee, sorry. So a lot of it was shot at Werribee, and a lot of it was shot Craigieburn, places like that. Gary and I just went and did a couple of nights just shooting some cutaways in both Ballarat and Bendigo. So there you go. You've got shots in there from Ballarat and Bendigo.
That explains the people going, I recognise that shot, that was Ballarat, and then the counterfight of, no, I recognise something else, and that was Bendigo. So that explains that.
I'm glad that they thought the rest of the film was shot in the country as well, though, so that's good.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us a little bit about the shoot. You mentioned before that if you could get stuff done in one take and it worked, you did it. Tell us a little bit about the shoot, what it was like, but also how COVID affected the shoot as well.
Well, COVID just made it really tough. Whenever you're working on films with sort of limited schedules, limited budgets, I mean, you just hope that everything can go right for you. And when you're shooting in lockdown, the odds are against you, certainly anything going right. And so just simple things like, you just don't even think about, well, the wardrobe department can't actually go and physically buy any clothes, and the art department can't physically go and buy any props. So it does make it tough. And obviously on set, everyone's masked up and there's all, spacing limitations, and there's no real, connection between cast and crew, and I think some of the camaraderie goes because you really don't spend much time with the cast. You spend times doing the takes, and then you're on to the next shot. It's not like you can catch up with them for a meal before or after the shoot or anything like that. But having said that, those battles and those limitations, and when you're working with the odds against you, really do help bring everyone together as a team, knowing that if we can pull something off, if we can get a scene that we're all happy with, it's quite a remarkable achievement.
How difficult was that on the younger cast members? Because normally when you're making a film like this, you would have sent Ella and the younger cast members away for a couple of days to get to know each other, so there's that friendship there, but also you probably would have got Ella and Rada to have worked together a lot as well to get that mother-daughter bond. Did that affect the way those kinds of relationships developed prior to the shoot?
Look, I honestly don't know, because we weren't able to do that. I don't know if it would have made it better or not. But we did have 2 days prior to the shoot where I got, the cast in, not all together, but like depending on who was in what scene, and we did read-throughs and we just did discussions of character. And that was all we did sort of in pre. But I think that was enough, because by the time we got on the set, as I said, Gary and I knew everything we needed to do. So it was just a matter of saying to the cast, look, we know exactly what we need to do. We know what you need to do. You need to trust us. And if we get it in the first take, tell us you're happy and we'll move on. And a lot of the time we were moving pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I think it helped that Ella and Karis totally bonded from the moment they met each other. They were like firm friends, 30 seconds after saying hello to each other. And they were just great together. And they were both making their first film, so they didn't know what was right and what was wrong and what normally happens on a professional shoot or an amateur shoot. They were just really, really excited to be making their first film. And I think that enthusiasm also, gets everyone else a little bit more enlivened with the process.
What were those young cast members like to work with? I think I said in my review I wouldn't be surprised in a few years' time if we're not referring to Ella as Oscar winner. So what were they like to work with, and how did you discover that young cast?
Look, they were amazing to work with. It was an absolute joy. And yeah, you're right. I think both. Karis really doesn't want to concentrate on being a screen actor. She's more of a musical person. She's, firmly established in stage shows and so forth. But yeah, I'm sure Ella will get snapped up by the US in no time and will be in a big series, and we'll never see her again. It's as simple as that.
So how did you discover them both? Did you do an open audition, or were they people that you'd had your eye on?
Ella had been in Harrow, one of the leads in the TV series Harrow, and she'd also just played Sigrid Thornton's youngest daughter in the Sea Change reboot. So she had some kind of profile, and she sent in a tape, and I just thought she was fantastic. It was such an easy decision. And with Karis, we just got a whole lot of people to come in and read alongside Ella, and and sorry, from the moment that she walked in and opened her mouth with Ella and they started interacting, I knew that was the couple we needed. And look, if I had have known how great they were going to be together, we would have done another draft and had them in a lot more scenes together.
Yeah. Now, of course, Rada and Vince as well are amazing in this film. Were they people that you had in mind for those roles from the very beginning?
Well, look, it's obviously it's difficult when you're working on a production that needs to get finance, international sales to get financed. And so with every film I've done, a list comes in from the sales agent of cast members that they can sell in certain roles. And Rada was on that list, and I, thought that's great. We can keep it all Australian. That's fantastic. And thankfully, she was in Melbourne renovating her apartment during COVID, so it all worked out really, really well. Vince, I needed someone who was charismatic, but also could sort of have an edge of menace, and I thought that he'd be absolutely perfect. And because the twist in the film, I also needed someone, that had some kind of profile in that role as well.
I've been trying to avoid mentioning the twist because I think that's one of the big things in this movie that makes the movie work so well. What was your thoughts on that twist as the director, especially when you first read the screenplay?
I think I was the one who added the twist to the screenplay, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
I just thought that as soon as we have that twist, we need to introduce all our cards straight away after that, so the audience isn't waiting around to work out what information they need to work out. So yeah, I think it comes at a good time, and I think it prepares you for a good final third of the film.
Definitely. Now, the other thing too that is a big part of this film is loss, especially when you consider what some of the characters have been through. Tell us a little bit about that element of the film as well, because I think one of the most powerful parts of this film is you've got a young girl who's basically blaming herself for her father's death. Tell us a little bit about how you explored that and why that was important to have in the film.
Look, I think the main thing about the film is that it's all about Amy wanting to protect her mother. And, you need a reason for that, and the reason we decided was that she's lost her father. She's promised that she'll look after the family because he's no longer there, and that's the most important thing to her. And the fact that everyone's kind of hindering that because no one believes her, I think is like the big narrative through line of the film.
Definitely. Now, Mark, I know we are running out of time very, very quickly. So to finish up, I would just like to ask you, what would you like to say to people out there before they head along and see this film? Of course, they're going to get a huge recommendation from myself and Kyle, my co-host, but what would you like to say to everybody before they head along and see the film?
Look, I just think it's a good populist popcorn movie, and we've tried to make it as stylish as possible. We've tried to make it not look like, your typical Australian film in terms of it's certainly not naturalistic. and it taps into a few key issues in the zeitgeist at the moment, but hopefully just entertains from first frame to last. And if that's what people want out of a film, then they should give it a go.